favorite moment from that football championship run this year?
Seeing our young people hoist the trophy and being in the locker room with them afterwards and seeing the joy on their faces, knowing that they made a lifetime memory.
Favorite pregame pump-up song for the Bulldogs?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. Mine's some kind of classic rock, so I don't know what the kids listen to because I don't know half the names of the music, right? So for me, it'd be Guns N' Roses or AC/DC, but I don't know what these kids are listening to. I can't answer that one.
Welcome to Building a Champion, the podcast where we break down what it takes to achieve greatness in sports, both on and off the field. Ferris State football has done it again. The Bulldogs captured the NCAA Division II National Championship, further cementing their legacy as one of the top programs in the country. Joining us to break it all down is none other than Steve Brocklebank, Ferris State's Athletic Director. Steve, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Great to be on here.
We are so happy to have you. I have to say, winning a national title is tough, but winning multiple like Ferris State has, that is legendary. Let's get straight into that big moment. Ferris State battled through an intense championship game and came out on top. Walk us through the emotions of that night. What was it like watching the team lift the trophy?
Well, it's always fun, and it's an accumulation of a year's worth of hard work by a lot of people, and it really takes a community of people to win at the level we've won at over the last 4 years. We've been fortunate, as you mentioned, multiple. So this is 3 out of 4 for us here at Ferris State. And I think, you look at the alignment from the board of trustees, to the president, to myself, to our coaching staff, and I think everybody's pulling the same direction. Everybody has their priorities in the correct order. And that's allowed us to set our student athletes up in that program for a lot of success. And obviously, a lot of credit goes to Coach Anise and his coaching staff, what they've been able to do from a recruiting standpoint and just putting together a program that has been incredibly strong. You could see that trajectory even before I got here, kind of on the right trajectory, taking them here. And we've been able to, in my first year, get there and then obviously maintain it here and win, 3 out of the last 4. So couldn't be more thrilled with that. And you're right, that night that they get to raise that trophy and the impact it has across the whole university, the university community, our alumni, and our university's Ferris has done a wonderful job of really broadcasting that national championship. All across the state and the Midwest. And so if you drive into Michigan anywhere, there's billboards that are all over that have Ferris State national champions. And so I think we've not only done a good job of making sure we're aligned to allow us to get to this place, but we've also, I think, done a really good job of executing a plan of, okay, how do we take advantage of this now that we've accomplished it, right?
Absolutely.
So kudos to a lot of people.
Love that. Well, every championship has a turning point, the moment where the team shows its true grit. What would you say that moment was for Ferris State in the game?
I really think it was our first home game. We lost to Pitt State in the opener in week 0, 19-3, came back and we're playing Lake Erie. And we have typically run a 2-quarterback system here. And so we had both quarterbacks going, and one of the quarterbacks broke his tibia and fibula in that game at Lake Erie. Carson Gulker, who's a tremendous young man. In fact, worked for us in the athletic offices with Peak Sports, one of our parties that sell sponsorships. He interned with us last summer here, but just a fantastic kid, great competitor. But broke those bones in his lower leg, and all of a sudden, we were, oh boy, what are we going to do? We're going to have to lean on one young quarterback, and he was a younger player, hadn't played a lot, hadn't had a lot of reps, and so I think that really the team kind of had to rally. They had to make a decision, right? How are we going to react to this? This was the guy that we thought was going to be probably the guy that get the majority of the snaps during the year. He certainly got the majority of the snaps at Pitt State. This was going to be the person that was going to take us right to the promised land of that national championship, and now we've lost him. And so, how are we going to respond to this? And I think our student athletes at that time just did a fantastic job. Their response was just what you would want it to be. And so they rallied, and then we went on a run, and we didn't lose another football game for the remainder of the year.
Wow.
So
You don't hear
really
that.
fortunate.
Yeah, you don't hear that happening very often.
No, right on. So
The program has been dominant, winning those multiple national titles in recent years. What would you say has been the key to sustaining that level of success?
I think it's and I say this across the board, not just for football, but I think there's a couple things that make us unique here at Ferris State, and it starts with our coaches and it starts with our culture in the athletic department. And I'm going to start with just the culture that we all share in together here at Ferris State. We have a great synergy here amongst our coaching staff, amongst the staff to the coaches, coaches to the staff. It's a very collaborative approach. There's lots of communication that goes on between all of us. It's not unusual for me to walk by, I'll say Coach Anise, since we're talking about football, and have our head men's basketball coach in there, and they're just talking about different situations and how they're managing it, right? So our head coaches, you'll see them spend a lot of time with each other, just talking through situations. And so there's a great collaboration amongst our coaches. And there's a lot of knowledge in this building. We have a lot of coaches. We're fortunate at Ferris. We have a lot of coaches that have been here a long, long time. I mean, our head hockey coach, we're just launching that search now. He's been here 33 years as our head hockey coach. Our volleyball coach, her tenure exceeds that. Coach Anise has been here since 2012. Our head men's basketball coach, I think, got here in 2007. I mean, so when you start going through our roster of coaches, and that includes a lot of our assistants have been here a long time. So they have a lot of knowledge to share with each other, and they do. You don't walk by. My door is always open. For this particular case right now, it's one of the few times it's been shut. In fact, I had to remind my administrative assistant, make sure nobody comes in here doing a podcast. I go, normally I don't care. But I said, just make sure that doesn't happen for these next 30 minutes or so. And but I think that's the nature of our offices, and so you have this great collaboration, communication, and so they're all leaning on each other. And when you combine all those years of knowledge together, right, it helps you become more effective and efficient as a head coach. And then I think the other part of it is that our coaches pour, and this is what's unique. People say, "What's the magic? What's the magic dust?" The magic dust is our coaches truly pour all kinds of time and energy into these young people, and they develop authentic relationships with these kids. And so when you walk around here, sometimes I feel like our offices is more a lounge than it is an office because there's so many student athletes just hanging out. So I know they have fantastic relationships with their coaches because they're just always here when they don't have to be here. And I think that makes a huge difference. People respond well when you pour time and energy, and we're not scared. Love into these young people. When you pour that into them, the result is what you see. We win at a high level in a number of our programs. I know we're talking about football because they want the highest level, but our women's soccer team 2 years ago was in the Final Four. We've won. Men's basketball has won a national championship. Women's basketball last year was in the Final Four. So you start looking at it across the board. We've been highly successful, and I think that's a big reason for it.
You have a culture of winning. It sounds like.
Yeah, we do. We're fortunate, but I think that culture is about a culture of people and pouring time and energy and love into people, right? And then you get people to achieve at a really high level. And I mean, that's no different for, whether it's athletics or whether you're working in an office space, right? When people pour time and energy and love into you, just like maybe your parents did or somebody did in your life, you're going to do everything you can to try to make that person proud of your effort, right? You're going to go that extra mile for that particular person or people, and I think it's no different here in athletics.
Yeah.
Well, Ferris State isn't just about winning on the field. You've built a program that develops great student athletes, both academically and personally. How do you support your athletes beyond the game?
Yeah, so that's something that we have poured a lot of time into over really the last probably about 2 years, 3 years. When I first arrived here, so I'm in year 4, and we saw some gaps and things where we thought we could do better from an academic standpoint, from just an educational standpoint. So we instituted a couple things. We instituted a dogs program, which is really an opportunity for us to provide additional educational opportunities for our student athletes outside of the classroom. So, we do financial literacy, we do nutrition, we do study habits, so we do a bunch of things within that program There's certain required courses for our student athletes to take, depending upon if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. And then there's lots of elective classes, right? So for the seniors, like resume development and interview skills, and so that's something that a senior would take. We had a bunch of alums in this fall. We talked about transition out of athletics and into the real world, like what's that like and how do you do it effectively, right? And how do you manage all those emotions that go with your whole identity? Your whole life has been, I'm a student athlete, I'm an athlete, and now I'm not. Now I just got to go to work like everybody else. So how do I make that transition? How do I carry over all those skills I learned as a student athlete, and how do I apply those now into real life? Like how do I actually do that? So there's all kinds of components to that. We've invested in hiring a graduate assistant to help us give us some more academic support. We've partnered with all kinds of people on campus. So we've really worked hard not to silo ourselves. So we partner with student support services for lots of tutoring help. And so I think that's made a big difference too, trying to reach out to folks across campus. And we got some other things in the works that hopefully we'd like to get some more academic support here, particularly for our student athletes. We've done a good job increasing our mental health support, our health services, our nutrition services. And so now we're working towards another position for some academic support here in the offices.
You mentioned you guys were going to be on the hunt for a hockey coach.
Mm-hmm.
From a leadership perspective, what do you look for in a great coach? What makes someone a fit for Ferris State?
Yeah, I think in Ferris State, particularly with hockey's a Division I sport. So it's unique in the fact that all of our other sports are Division II and hockey is Division I. There's 64 Division I hockey programs across the country. So it is a unique opportunity for someone because there's just so few of them out there. If you want to coach collegiate hockey, there's probably 5 or 6 that open up on an annual basis. So I think we're going to have a really good set of candidates. I think it's understanding that you got to embrace Ferris for what it is. We're in Big Rapids, Michigan. It's not a huge town. I think it's a great college town because I've been in places where you're not the only show in town. Well, here we're kind of the only show in town, so it's kind of cool. So you can really rally the community, and your ability to link to and connect with the community is going to be really important because if you can do that, they're going to come out and support you like crazy because there's not a lot happening on a Friday or Saturday night in Big Rapids, Michigan, right? So I think it's understanding that, right now we have a little bit of an older facility, but that's okay because it could be a really tough facility to play in, right? So it's embracing that, like, hey, we're not going to be Michigan State. We're not going to have the nicest, the newest. We're not going to have a new arena with 24 suites wrapped around it and a restaurant inside it. And, we're not going to have all that, and that's okay. You can still win at hockey at a high level here, understanding that. And I think it's just embracing the kind of kid that we get here. We typically get a lot of blue collar type kids, a lot of kids with a lot of grit. That's something we've always prided ourselves on here. And then we have some really unique programs here at Ferris State. We are not a traditional liberal arts institution, although you can take some courses that, in the liberal arts field. But boy, we have things that I think are fantastic to recruit to, but we have welding engineering. We have construction management, HVAC, heavy equipment, diesel repair, diesel mechanics. So there's all these unique programs that you can recruit to, but we're definitely more of a blue collar institution. But I think it's fantastic because, a lot of times parents, when they're seeking universities, they'll always say, like, well, what job does this get? Well, we can show you, yeah. Right? We have a lot of degrees where we say, well, you do X. You go into construction management, here's a job that you're going to get, and you're going to be highly sought after. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of those things. And somebody, as I mentioned earlier, for me, because of our culture and who we are, somebody that can fit into our offices, into this culture, right? Be a part. I want our head hockey coach, just as he is now, I want them to build and connect with our head football coach and our head women's volleyball coach and our head women's soccer coach, right? I think that's important. I don't want to ever lose that synergy amongst our head coaches. So that's obviously very important. And then somebody who's willing to do the extra stuff to build those relationships with young people. I always tell our coaches, coaching was so much easier. I first started out as a coach. And when I first started coaching, life was just much simpler for me as a coach. You didn't have to pour in, or at least the expectation wasn't that you were going to pour in all kinds of time and energy in developing these really truly authentic relationships. You just didn't have to do it. Kids responded, "Hey, do this." Okay, because coach said to do it, right? But now kids, if you really want to get the level of performance that we want to see these young people achieve, you got to be willing to put in that kind of time. And so that's important to me too, to find that coach that has that ability to relate to young people, and not only relate to them, but willing to say, you know what, I'm willing to put in that time, because it's time consuming. It just is. If you want to build relationships, and you're going to try to build relationships with anywhere from 26 to 30 young men, it's going to take some time. It's going to take 10 o'clock at night phone calls, 11 o'clock at night phone calls, checking in with them on the weekends when you're not playing hockey, connecting with them in the summer, right? It just takes a lot of time to build relationships.
Well, you've accomplished so much already. I'm sure you're not done yet. What is next for Ferris State Athletics? What are some of the big goals moving forward?
Well, I think for us now, we're really trying to turn our attention to facilities. We have some facilities that are lacking. And so people are always very concerned about our facilities, and I am too, to a degree, because we do need to update our facilities. We recognize that, but I always tell people facilities don't win championships, and we've proven that. If you came over and looked at our football facility, you would be aghast. It's worse than many high schools. It really is. But we've won 3 out of 4 national championships playing in that facility, right? Our hockey facility is old. It's tight. We've won in that facility too, plenty. So, but right now our attention is, we're working on Top Taggart Field, which is the football stadium. So we're starting construction down there. We're actually going to put a residence hall on the north end of the stadium, followed by an indoor with a support building on the south end of the stadium, and then start doing some work on the visitor side bleachers. So we're fundraising for those things. We're starting with the construction in March here on the residence hall. And then we know at some point we got to address the hockey arena, right? So those are really, I think right now for us, our priorities is really a facility piece.
I'm sure Ferris State fans are wondering, can the Bulldogs go back to back to back, make it one more? What's it going to take to keep the momentum rolling?
Well, I think exactly what we've been doing. I think it's making sure that we're all aligned and that we're all on the same page. And I really believe we are. And I think, Coach Anise, if you were to have him on here, I know he would attest to that. So we're incredibly fortunate in that my boss, President Bill Pink, former student athlete, former coach, actually told me at one point he thought he was going to be an athletic director, and then ended up getting his PhD and went down the academic track. But it's wonderful for me to have a president like that, somebody who understands athletics, values the student athlete experience, values what athletics can do for the institution, right? Wants to see us do well, just because he's a lover of athletics and wants to ensure that our student athletes have a championship experience, but also understands, hey, I can leverage athletics to help this institution out and get some things accomplished that I, as a president, are a priority for me, right? So I think that's number one, and we still have that alignment. So do I think we can do it again? You bet I do, and I think we can do it because we're aligned and we're trying to do everything we can to help position all of our teams, including Coach Anise, to win championships. And those are the things we talk about. And one of the reasons I took this job was because I said, I want to go somewhere where we're not talking about just winning and being competitive, but winning championships. And as President Pink and I talk about, not just winning conference championships, but how do we position these teams and these programs to win national championships? Like, what is it that we have to do? And when you walk in our hallway, you'll see our mission and vision statement. And we talk right on there, like, part of what we're doing is about winning championships and winning national championships. And so we know that's not going to happen all the time, but we want to do everything we can in our power to position our student athletes and coaches to do exactly that. And so those conversations are going on all the time. Are they in the best position? What are their needs? How do we fill these gaps? How do we set them up for success, the highest level of success that we can get them to, right? So those are the conversations that we're having on a regular basis.
And we know the football team had an amazing year last year. Prior to recording, we briefly were discussing some of your other teams are off to a very successful start as well this year.
Yeah, men's basketball is doing very well, and Andy's done Coach Brockleban's done a wonderful job with that program for a long, long time. I mean, he won a national championship back in 2018. They're always, he took them to the Final 8 last year. So, I mean, they had a good run in the NCAA tournament. before bowing out. And then women's basketball, currently in second place in the conference, but they went to the Final Four last year in the NCAA tournament. Hockey just had a couple good weekends. They beat Minnesota, split with Minnesota State, which we'll take. They were the number 14 team in the country coming into the building, and then they swept up Bemidji State this past weekend. So lots of good things going on. Our men's golf team qualified for the NCAAs last year. Just missed the cut by like a stroke, which is pretty good for a team from up north, right? But we have some outstanding golf facilities. We have a pro golf management program, which certainly helps us. We have a pro tennis management program too. So our tennis programs are always very good as well. And softball actually plays their first game today. They're down in Hawaii, and they play at 7:00 here in Hawaii. So they went there for the week. So get them out of the cold and get them somewhere where they can go and start their season off right. But, talking about the Hawaii thing, those are the things I'm talking about. When we talk about how do we best position our teams to win at a high level? So, when I go to President Pink and I say, hey, Bill, I said, well, we really want to take this team to Hawaii. He's like, yeah, let's get them there. Like, if it's going to help them win and set them up for their season, let's do it. Then they're still going down to Florida, right? So we'll still send them down to Florida over the spring break. So I think it's those kinds of things where you're always thinking, how do we help them, right? And then, of course, that helps Coach Schumann in recruiting, right? When he's going to Hawaii and then he's going to go to Florida. And so those kids go, yeah, okay, I find this sounds like fun, right? And we're trying to do everything in our power to help them win. And when student athletes and parents see the commitment of the institution towards those programs, we're more apt to land some recruits that maybe other people wouldn't necessarily land, right? So I think we're fortunate from that standpoint. So yeah, a lot of our programs are doing really well. We talked about soccer. Had a really strong women's soccer program. They went to the Final Four 2 years ago in women's soccer, and happy with what Coach Henson's doing. And then volleyball, I mean, be remiss if I didn't talk about volleyball this year. They were 34-1. They got down to the Final Eight, and that's where they got their one loss was there. So they won our conference tournament, won our conference regular season championship, and won the NCAA regional championship.
Lots of domination across the board.
Yeah, it has been fun without a doubt. It has been really enjoyable.
And you don't feel the pressure, huh? I mean, once you start having all that success, the pressure is incredible, isn't it? To continue.
It might be at some places, but here again, I think because we all lean on each other and we're all pulling the same direction and we're all trying to enjoy it, and I think we're always brainstorming what's next, right? How do we keep this up and what's next? And so I guess there's a little bit of pressure from that standpoint, in that you want to try to figure out what's the next missing piece of this puzzle, right? To help keep putting it together. And so that's where I think our job as administrators is to really help our coaches figure that out. And then our job is to go and advocate for them and say, hey, here's what, coach, he or she says they need, and we want to make this happen for that program or for that coach. And like I said, you don't have to advocate too hard when you have a board of trustees and a president and people that are all pulling in the same direction, value, college athletics, and value the student athlete experience, and want to win championships. I think when everybody's focused on the same thing, when I say advocate, it's really just more have a conversation and then lay out the needs and then figure out, okay, how are we going to meet these needs?
Right.
Okay. All right, Steve, let's switch gears here quickly for our rapid fire round. We've got quick questions. You can come back with quick answers. You ready to take that on?
I'll try my best. Sometimes I'm not real quick with my answers. I'm a little longer-winded with my answers. So, yeah, but I'll try to be quick. You bet.
Perfect. Favorite moment from that football championship run this year?
Seeing our young people hoist the trophy and being in the locker room with them afterwards and seeing the joy on their faces, knowing that they made a lifetime memory.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is one word to describe that Ferris State football team?
Gritty.
Favorite pregame pump-up song for the Bulldogs?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. Mine's some kind of classic rock, so I don't know what the kids listen to, so I don't know half the names of the music, right? So for me, it'd be Guns N' Roses or AC/DC, but I don't know what these kids are listening. I can't answer that one.
What would you say is the best part about being an athletic director?
I think it's having an opportunity to interact with such a wonderful group of human beings in terms of our coaches and our student athletes.
If you could have dinner with any coach in history, who would it be?
That's a tough question. I'm going to say right off the top of my head, I'd love to sit down with Bo Schembechler and have dinner with him. I'm an old football coach, and so he was always, as a kid, he was kind of an idol of mine. So I think that would be fun to sit down with him.
If you weren't in athletics, what career would you have, do you think?
That's a really good question too. Probably something in business or sales. I do like the business part of athletics. I do like the numbers part, so I do enjoy that.
Rich, any questions off the top of your head?
No, I think it's incredible to see what you've put together, and especially across all the venue, or, the sports, the different sports. It's fantastic that it's not a football program.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I didn't do it. Let me say that. I don't even like to say I did it. My job is just trying to help and assist these people do their work, right? Like they do it, our coaches do it, our culture does it, we all own it, and so it's really like I said, it's a very collaborative. It's a community of people that are doing this thing together. So I just happen to be the director of athletics.
Well, Steve, this has been an incredible conversation. Congratulations again to Ferris State on another national title. Before we go, any final words of wisdom for young athletes or coaches that are looking to build a championship mindset themselves?
Yeah, I think so. I think a couple of things. One, I think just be persistent, right? Be persistent. Understand that whatever dream it is that you're chasing, there's lots of ups and downs. It's a little bit of a roller coaster, and don't be scared to get really obsessed over something and really work at something, right? Really commit yourself to one thing. Sometimes I think that's really important. Some of our best coaches here and our best student athletes are really so laser focused on their craft, and they're laser focused on their academics. And when they do those two things, they don't allow a lot of other things to distract them from that. They're pretty good at what they do.
Well, Steve, thank you again for joining us. Ferris State is truly building something special, and we will be watching to see what's next for you all. And that is going to do it for today's episode of Building a Champion. Big thanks to Steve Brocklebank for giving us an inside look at Ferris State's championship success. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode. And until next time, keep building champions on and off the field.